Hello and welcome to my British Steam Locomotive podcast show. Here I'll explain everything about the British steam locomotive. Today's steam locomotive I'll be discussing about is the newly built Peppercorn A1 Pacific number 60163 Tornado. So sit back and enjoy. The London and North Eastern Railway's last chief mechanical engineer was Arthur Henry Peppercorn. He designed the new A1s for express passenger services, mixed traffic for freight, and also suburban services. The A1s were built at two sites in under 2 years. 49 of them were built, starting from W.P. Allen to 60162. Unfortunately, all of them were scrapped, even though some enthusiasts tried to search for the prototype A1 W.P. Allen, but unfortunately the engine couldn't be found. In 1990, a pub discussion was formed to say which engine is missing from the national collection. The A1 was brought up, saying yes, it would be nice to have an A1, but rather than saying yes it would, wouldn't it, and then nothing happening, it was taken a step further. So they formed the A1 Steam Locomotive Trust, and Arthur Peppercorn's widow Dorothy Martyr, unfortunately passed away at the age of 99 at the present time. She showed strong support and became the trust president of the A1 Steam Locomotive Trust. The new A1 will be a genuine 50th member of the A1 class, rather than a replica, and it was going to be called Tornado. Dorothy Martyr pressed the button on the machine to begin cutting the first bits of metal. It was soon taking shape at the Trust headquarters, an unconverted carriage shed in Darlington. Most parts were built from scratch here in the UK, providing it was the original materials used to build the original A1s. Network Rail have approved of a new engine being built for mainline and preserved railways. That was the A1 Trust's goal, to operate a Peppercorn A1 Pacific to use on the main line and preserved railways, which is a good thing. So they decided to build this new A1 from scratch. It was going to be a brand new steam engine built from scratch since Evening Star was finished back in 1960. The A1 Steam Locomotive Trust were almost finished. They were building the new A1 bit by bit. Unfortunately, some doubters say, yes, you can do this bit and you can do that bit, but there is one magical device you're missing for this A1, the boiler. Well, you lot could ask, how was this engine built from scratch? How did they design this new A1? Well, I'll tell you, they got the drawings out of the National Railway Museum in York for them to build the new A1 from scratch. They used their own laptop to get the original drawings out and use it carefully to say which bits are missing. The boiler was the missing bit, so they sent this boiler drawing to the magic town of Meiningen, which are the number one people for building boilers from scratch. So they built boilers for their steam locomotives, for their German locomotives, and they decided to help out the A1 Trust build a brand new boiler for the A1. Rather than being a riveted boiler, it was a steel boiler, which helps as much, like the original steel boilers found on Bulleid's Pacifics. It was the total cost was £3 million to build this A1 from scratch. And you thought, wow, £4 million. Well, not 4 million, sorry, 3 million. 4.5 million was used to refit Flying Scotsman. The National Railway Museum found this interesting, how the A1 was being built from scratch. But back onto the main story. Ian Howett was building Tornado's tender frames in West Yorkshire. They were soon finished and brought to Darlington. They were doing mostly bits, and as soon as the boiler arrived, they fitted it to the locomotive and attached all the bits to the engine, and plus the smoke box they made up as well. And get this engine has a self-cleaning smoke box, and also the how can I put this? A double coal tap exhaust for the double chimney to prevent smoke draft, to improve the smoke drafting. An ash pan, a rocking grate to put most ash into the ash pan, so they find it easier to use less labour intensive work details. Even though some people have to go inside the firebox to clean off the ash, but this time it was less labour intensive work. So, Tornado was being almost complete. They had to reach the £66,000 gap. So all of the trust members turned out in force to see this new engine, and Dorothy Martyr, who was in her 90s, lit Tornado's fire, as her husband lit the engine's fire on number... I don't know which number W.P. Allen was, but W.P. Allen was lit by her... I guess it was Peppercorn who lit the engine for the first time. Now his former wife, Dorothy Martyr, lit Tornado's fire for the first time. Malcolm Crawley was a former Doncaster apprentice who worked on the original A1s, had the honour of throwing in the first lumps of coal. The coal is Russian coal, if there are any. Well, I'm not going to say in detail how the coal was brought here, so it's secret. I don't know the specific details of it. But since Tornado's fire was lit, its steam test began in 2008 in January. After the steam test was passed by who is it? I forgot his name now. Oh, never mind. The boiler inspector passed Tornado's steam test. The engine has smoke deflectors to prevent blocking the driver's view of smoke. Yeah, I remember his name now. It's Tom Glaze. Tom Glaze was a boiler inspector, and he looked at and examined Tornado's boiler, and it was used for 10 years. Now Tornado was finished, and the main goal was to make it move. When it was finished, the A1 Trust, three of the A1 Trust members, Mark Allett, the chairman, and his wife, went to the National Rail Museum in York, along with Graham Bunker, the operations director. So Graham Bunker, if you're listening to this on the podcast show, I hope you're enjoying this. The A1 was finished. All it needs to do now is move up and down at Darlington, that's never had track in it before, and also get a chance to move up and down a heritage railway in Leicestershire, which is the Great Central Railway. As soon as Tornado was finished, he moved for the first time after 42 years since the Peppercorn A1s were scrapped, and 18 years since a couple of men sat down in a pub to consider building one. Tornado was standing ready. The question remains, did it work? Well, the magic answer is yes, it did work. And as well an enthusiast myself, I like Tornado. She's now one of my favourite mainline locomotives. and I'm proud to be working with them, keeping Tornado clean and stoking her fire, which I did, which is a fantastic job. And I blew her whistle as well. I had the honour of blowing her whistle, but no more specific details to that. Tornado was pulling her first passenger train on the Great Central Railway. Then she made it back to York to begin mainline testing. And she did, I think the route she took was from York to Harrogate and back via Leeds. Well, York to Harrogate via Leeds and then to Knaresborough and then back to York again, which is a fantastic job. And she was painted into British Railways apple green livery, and by the end of the year and beginning of 2009, Tornado was fitted with a chime whistle. Now, the A4 chime whistle you hear most often is the one belonging to Sea Eagle, a former peppercorn, a former A4 class. But the name Sea Eagle was carried from an A4 to a peppercorn A1. But I don't know which one. So the chime whistle was fitted to Tornado, and it became obvious this is a brand new steam locomotive, and anything could happen. You could fit anything to it, such as a chime whistle. So Tornado has two whistles, a high-pitched bell whistle, which the original A1s had, and the chime whistle from an A4, which I like. Tornado starred on many trains, such as the famous Belmont British Pullman train known as the Orient Express, and she was the one became an apple green Pacific at the head of gleaming Pullman cars since Flying Scotsman. It was a good choice. That Flying Scotsman was going to be up close and personal with alongside the A1. And now she's pulling Belmont trains again to stand in for Clan Line. And it's really nice. The A1 Trust are very reliable guys and very friendly bunch who you can get along with. Well, I should say. And they also run their own trains for Tornado, provided by UK Rail Tours and mostly Belmont British Pullman, all the time sometimes. UK Rail Tours are the only optional choices to provide rail tours for each company's locomotive and train. So I hope you've all enjoyed this fantastic podcast about Tornado. The next steam locomotive hopefully to be discussing is about LMS steam locomotives. And well, I hope you all got this right. I'll be discussing, I hope you're okay with it, is the LMS Black 5. The LMS Stania Black 5 5MT, which is a 460. And that'll be the next engine I'll be discussing on the next podcast show, the LMS Black 5. So, that's all we have time for. Thank you for listening to the podcast show about British steam locomotives. Bye for now.